So for more analysis on the president's speech, I am going to bring in CBS News congressional correspondent Scott MacFarlane. Scott, it's always good to see you. In the president's address, Mr. Biden talked about abortion rights in a post-Roe v. Wade environment. I want to play some of that.
Those bragging about overturning Roe v. Wade have no clue about the power of women. But they found out when reproductive freedom was on the ballot. We won in 2022 and 2020, and we'll win again in 2024. If you, the American people, send me a Congress that supports the right to choose, I promise you, I'll restore Roe v. Wade as the law of the land again.
So I'm curious what the reaction on the Hill has been to the president's remarks.
There was this synchronized effort over the past 24 hours by Democrats to try to amplify a message about the importance of women's reproductive rights. You saw it with dozens of House Democratic caucus women wearing all white on the floor. You saw it in the guests they chose. Some of them brought women who've had their lives impacted by IVF. Fertility doctors who specialize in IVF were among those in the U.S. House chamber last night. So the president speaks about IVF and about Roe versus Wade. It resonates with the message Democrats are trying to communicate, a message that has been transcendently impactful for their electoral chances ever since 2022. You'll have other Democrats supporting and celebrating that the president talked about preserving Social Security, about aid for Ukraine, about a border security package that they believe Republicans blew up. But then you have the Republican responses, which are expected, that they believe President Biden's speech was too politicized, that it was transparently political, and they argue filled with anger. This is a divisive political moment in the U.S. Congress, and no indication this address would change that.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting reading some of the former President Trump's posts on Truth Social, criticizing President Biden for sounding angry and how divisive that anger was. And I was like, it sounds familiar. But I digress. Speaking of the Republican response, there was an official Republican response that came from Senator Katie Britt. I want to play some of that.
He's out of touch. Under his administration, families are worse off, our communities are less safe, and our country is less secure.
So this is the GOP rebuttal. Really interesting. She is in her kitchen. Tell us more, about why it was significant that Senator Britt was the one chosen to deliver this.
Well, in a shaping campaign, Anne-Marie, where Donald Trump and Joe Biden are going to have a difficult time arguing they are change agents or youthful, vigorous candidates, Republicans, for their messenger, chose a 40-something first-term new face in the U.S. Senate in Katie Britt. Their opportunity to try to argue for change. Katie Britt is not only new here, though, but she's from a pretty key state in the past few weeks, Alabama, where Republicans are trying to defuse the political bomb of that state Supreme Court's ruling that for a short while overturned IVF and stopped, or at least induced the stop of some of the procedures in that state. So a strategic choice by Republicans. But what you get when you have the opposing party response is an awful lot of focus on performance, and I mean that in a more narrow way. How did she perform in front of the camera? You're always going to get criticism when you're the person in that role. Katie Britt's getting some of that this morning, accused by some people of giving a performance that wasn't meeting the moment. Republicans say not only was it effective, they say that backdrop works, as so many people struggle and worry about kitchen table issues, putting her, a mother and a senator, at a kitchen table.
Interesting. All right. So the president also used the moment to call out Republicans for failing to pass the bipartisan national security bill. This is a bill that would help to fund Ukraine, and he talked about how important it is to ensure that Ukraine wins the war and not Russia. Where do things stand on that and the looming partial government shutdown? I know that there's some stopgap measures were passed, but I think there's another deadline coming really, really soon, right?
First of all, we think the Senate's going to iron out the final wrinkles of the first government spending bill to avoid a shutdown tonight. The second bill comes up in a couple of weeks. Some more nettlesome issues in there, including the military and homeland security at a time of wars overseas and a migrant crisis in the U.S. That may take a little more time to iron out, but there's optimism because the first deadline's about to be averted. About Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan funding. This is money the White House said it needed at the end of 2023. We are now very well into 2024. And at this point, though the Senate has passed tens of billions of dollars for those three necessary areas, the U.S. House is still stymied, and it's a more pernicious gridlock in the U.S. House. If the bill got to the floor, there's a sense it would pass. But right now, bills are not moving traditionally through the House floor at all. They're circumventing their own rules. They're using end-around procedures to do just the baseline of government. And to get something higher level, next level, more complex like foreign aid, there's no sure path and really no timeline.
Oh, wow. Scott MacFarlane, thank you very much.